Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2014 State of the Community. I'm Jim Hovland. I'm the mayor of Edina.
And I'm Rick Dressen, Superintendent of Edina Public Schools.
And I'm Scott Neal. I'm the Edina City Manager.
So here's the way we're going to do the State of the Community this evening. I'm going to go first, and then Superintendent Dressen, and then Scott Neal, and I'll come back and wrap it up. So thank you, gentlemen, for coming this evening. This is our second voyage on the State of the Community this year. We did the State of the Community last week with the Chamber, the Edina Chamber, and it was, I think, a great success, well received, with over 100 people in attendance. So, you know, we spent 2013 celebrating our quasquicentennial, which was a look back at 125 years of Edina's history. But now we're returning to what we've always done well in Edina, and that is looking forward and envisioning what's going to be happening in the future. When I first got on the council, we started a process called Vision 2020, which looked at a lot of different components of our city. You can see from the slide that the vision for Edina at that particular time, back in 2000, was that Edina would be the preeminent place for living, learning, raising families, and doing business, distinguished by a livable environment, effective and valued city services, a sound public infrastructure, and a balance of land uses and innovation. We're going to talk about some of those elements of that vision tonight, and I'm sure that some of those will be incorporated into the Vision 2040 work that we do, not only with the council, but with the rest of the citizens in our community. So I'm going to start this off by starting the conversation about living, what's going on with respect to living in Edina. Now, the Met Council released a couple of weeks ago its latest data forecast for city growth, and we're projected to grow by about 3,000 people to 53,300 in the year 2040. We're well on the way to establishing some of the housing stock that we need for that expansion. We've already seen, as I said, growth in the housing, and in the next few years we may start to see the population inch up as those folks begin to occupy that, in particular, that multifamily housing. So let me give you some examples. We've got construction well underway at the One Southdale Place, which is located on the southeast corner of the Southdale Mall property, across from Key Cadillac and across from the Westin. There are 3 buildings being constructed at that particular location, as you can see from the video. There'll be a 10-story building running parallel to York, a 6-story building facing the Westin, which you just saw in the photograph, and that building is partway up, stick-built. And then in a triangular sort of fashion, there'll be a 3rd building, 3 stories tall, facing the mall. When that's all finished, with heated underground parking for the residents, there'll be 232 units at that location. I think, if memory serves me right, they're planning on occupancy for early 2015. So construction's also underway over at Byerly's. I'm sure many of you have noticed the activity there. As the new store is being built with the old one in place, some adaptation has taken place with respect to the other store, the old store. This, as you can see, is the new covered heated walkway for the new store, and they're coming along quite well at that location. The existing store is about 59,000 square feet. The new store, as you can see in the rendering, will be a slightly smaller, 40,000 plus square feet, but much more efficient in its operation. There's also going to be 3 other buildings on that site that are going to help increase our population as we move forward. There are presently, shortly will be under construction a 109-unit building, and then followed in due course by 2 more buildings that are being built along the Promenade. And the total occupancy there, when everything is done, I think will be in excess of 200 and some units there, 210 units. And then we have another multifamily project that's gone through sketch plan review and has been back to the Planning Commission. It's a development from Lennar Multifamily Investors down in Chicago. They've got interest in redeveloping what folks may know as the old Wicks Furniture site, which is a 3-acre parcel that straddles or occupies space between York Avenue and Xerxes Avenue in Edina. There were 5 houses on the Xerxes Avenue side of Edina that the property owner had to figure out how to acquire in order to come up with this proposal. that we understand that they have done that, and this unit will have 273 apartment units in it if it's approved by the council. As I said, that has yet to come before us. So this is just in the dreaming phase, I guess is one way you could characterize it. We've also got another project that we've approved, actually two of them at 65th in France. One is a medical office building, and then as an alternative use would be senior housing with transitional care units and also senior assisted housing. If all of these come to fruition, we'll have over 1,000 new units of housing added to the Southdale District over the next couple of years. Single family has also been an area for us that has been very active. In 2013, the city issued an all-time high of 120 permits for tear downs and rebuilds. We also issued 7 permits for new homes on vacant lots. Those homes have a combined value of more than $65 million. And then in 2012, we broke the prior record with 95 permits for tear downs. And as you can see from the chart here, 52 tear down rebuilds in 2011, 31 in 2010. So there's been a progressive trend upward as folks find our community to be a desirable place to live, both from a geographic standpoint and I think because of our excellent school district, which the superintendent is going to talk about shortly. The combined value of the new properties that were approved in 2012 total over $55 million. So we've got $120 million in value created in the last 2 years just with respect to single-family homes. The leading builders in Edina, you can see on the screen, JMS leading the way with 14 rebuilds within the last year, and then on down the line with some of the other builders that folks have come to know over time in our community. The tear down activity, of course, has not been without its challenges. It led to us hiring the first residential redevelopment specialist in our city's history, a woman named Cindy Larson. She was hired in 2013 to aid in the redevelopment process. She's had an immediate impact, especially in the more intangible aspects of residential redevelopment. We believe that her position is the first of its kind in the state, but it might not be long before we see the same sort of activity in Minneapolis as the new Ward 13 councilperson, Linnea Palmisano, has told our city manager that she'd like to see Southwest Minneapolis with the same type of coordination going on with a residential redevelopment specialist. So that's some of the activity that's happening from a living standpoint in Edina. All of this, as I say, visioned for by the council and our staff and the planning commission folks, that makes, and it's caused us to see created some wonderful, wonderful projects. Now I'm going to introduce our superintendent of schools, Rick Dressen, who we are so grateful to have in our community. Has done just an outstanding job in Edina leading our school system, which is, we think, and I think data holds up, the finest in the state. Rick, welcome.
Thank you, Jim. And I do appreciate, and the entire district appreciates the leadership and the partnership we have between the city and the school district. And we are often on common ground talking about issues around life and about learning, and really want to talk a little bit about learning tonight and the value that learning is going to have for all of us going forward. And as the school district looks at our work, we are talking about next generation of Edina Public Schools, and that next generation is going to continue to have a strong focus on excellence. So we're going to continue to have a strong focus on what we do well, and we know what we do well. What we do well is really stay strong to our core, that we have a high expectation on academics, that we provide lots of opportunities, that we have a lot of involvement and partnership with the families and with the community. And this is not just for our preschool through grade 12, this is for all of us. We all are going to have to be engaged in learning. And so as we do our planning for our next generation Edina Public Schools, our Vision 2015 and beyond, we are looking at all learners. Now we know our primary focus is that kindergarten through grade 12. And we know that we're going to stay strong with our mission, and that mission is around 3 guiding principles: around partnership for all to be successful so they can thrive in a rapidly changing, dynamic, cultural, diverse world. It's one that's going to be very exciting. So how do we prepare for that? How do we prepare for learners who are going to be part of a 21st century and a 22nd century? Because we know the students who are in our classrooms today are truly a part of the 22nd century as well. And we're going to do it by the base. We're going to stay strong with what we know and do well, and we're going to continue to advance that excellence in all areas. So as we look to that, our enrollment trends, we continue to be strong, that we are pretty much at that capacity, that we know that our enrollment of school-age children in Edina as it stands today is right around that 8,300 number. And so with that in mind, in order to fill our classroom seats, we do accept about 14% of those students through open enrollment. That open enrollment comes from school districts throughout the West Metro area. We also recognize that about 14% of our students who live in the Edina Public Schools boundaries, within those boundaries, attend schools beyond Edina. So either homeschool, private schools, or other public schools. So we really try to watch that balance. And as you can see a lot of things about our learners, but one thing, they're becoming more diverse. More diverse in their abilities, more diverse in their interests, more diverse culturally, more diverse in race, socioeconomically. Across the board, our learners are reflecting the state of Minnesota, and they're reflecting society. We are becoming that new diversity piece. And how do we take opportunities around that to make sure these students that are entering our system today, that believe in all of us as a community, that where we are living today will create a great learning opportunity for them going forward and a great life going forward. From a success standpoint, we are proud of what we accomplish as a school district. We are proud of what we accomplish as a community. And we are nationally recognized, and in some areas internationally recognized for our success. And while we hear a lot about the academics or the athletics or the arts, I can tell you every day there are great successes going on. Amazing things that our teachers are doing with our young people, amazing things the schools and the families are doing together, amazing things this community is doing together. And you can see our success is most impressive. And we are a strong advanced placement school district. We know that that's an important part of our world. Advanced placement, that's been part of our school district curriculum since 1955. That we put a high value in saying our kids can be college ready and career ready and life ready as they move through the system. And yet we also know that with all that success going on, we still are challenged, that we still recognize there is a gap, an achievement gap, an opportunity gap, and at times an access gap. And as a school district community, we're working hard to make sure it is all of us working for the success of all. And so we have a variety of initiatives to make sure that we do close that gap, that we do provide the necessary opportunities and the access that all learners really need, deserve, and expect when you attend Edina Public Schools. From a resource management standpoint, we are proud of our success story, that we receive about 67% of our funds from the state. We have strong support from our community, including approved levies, operating levies, and where we put those dollars are right back into the classroom. A long priority of this school district has been put the money where it makes a difference, within the classrooms, with our teachers, with providing educational options for our learners. So you can see where that funding source goes, it goes right back to the students. And because we are a people industry, majority of our funds do go to those people resources. As we look to the future, as we look at our next generation, as we look at 2015 and beyond as a school district, what we're focusing on now more than ever is making sure that learning is the constant. And what's going to become our variable are our resources. We recognize that it no longer has to be locked into facilities. We know today our learners are learning in very new ways with the ability of technology, that they are using that flipped experience, that blended experience, new ways of finding learning. So learning doesn't have to happen just in that school setting. We know that our time does not have to be locked in, that we know some of the best learning occurs in those evening hours when kids are getting together in various local places of gathering. Or we know that the summer is a great time of learning, and we're not advocating that students don't need that time to recharge or families don't need that time to vacation, but we can look at time differently too. That can become a variable. From a standpoint of talent, that we know that we have to continue to retool and support our teachers as this education continues to change and as the opportunities and the amount of instructional materials that we now have available for all students, that we have to provide training for our teachers so that truly are ready for that learner who comes into them ready to learn each and every day. And we know that we have to maximize our finances, that our financial needs are going to exceed our needs that we have from a programmatic standpoint. And so that we have to take a look and say, where can we get the biggest dollar advantage for the needs that we have. And so we're constantly taking a look at our funding, our revenues, and how we spend that money to make sure it gets back to the mission. As I spoke about facilities, I want to touch it just a little bit more to say this is an area that we're going to continue to be challenged on because we are, as they say, flying a full ship. Our facilities are full, they're well used, but they're also quite dated. Our newest building was built in 1971. So we have buildings dating back to the 1950s, and learning is changing, and the type of space is changing. And so we're going to continue to study that going forward. We know of the school districts that are able to get deferred maintenance, a levy appropriation through the state. We're the 5th oldest school district in that ranking. That, again, we are challenged by that, but it's, again, something that we as a community will figure out, how do we address that? So we want to make sure all of these resources are being maximized to reach that learning constant or the mission of the district. Our 3 focus areas as we look to 2015 and beyond, as we look at this commitment to learning, is one around personalized learning. This has been a discussion and this has been a work that we've done and we've researched and we've been practicing this commitment to make sure that we have a personalized learning experience. One that provides options and opportunities, one that makes sure that we set high expectations and that we provide opportunities for intervention and advancement for students, one that creates flexibility, and one that's based on relationships. Relationships between the teacher and the student, relationships between the teacher, the student, and the family. So that personalized experience is going to continue to be a significant value for us. As we grow forward, we take that personalized learning and say, how are we doing? How are we doing in all areas of learning? And so we have 2 major studies going on right now in the school district. One is a secondary academic program study, grades 6 through 12. And soon, that over the month of March and over the month of April, we'll be rolling out recommendations saying these are the things that we need to do to continue the excellence, and these are the areas we need to advance. We think we can do more around advising all students. We think we can do more around providing more secondary, post-secondary option and opportunities for our learners. We think we can do more about personalizing the experience and providing students new ways to experience their learning. And so we're continuing to do study around that and be rolling out recommendations to the community to discuss and plan further. We'll also have a birth through grade 5 study going on, making sure that we have strong foundational programs that will work in partnership with our community in those early years as we get ready for that kindergarten experience. And then kindergarten through grade 5 will continue to stay strong. As we look to the future, we're also planning around what do we as a community need to do about learning. And so next year we'll begin a strategic plan around our community education services and how we partner with the city and other organizations to make sure that this truly is a community of learning from birth right on through those final days where you want to be engaged in learning. And again, the power of Edina. The power of Edina has always been about partnership. It's always been about engagement, and we'll continue to value this to the highest level possible. We appreciate the partnership we have with the many people who connect with us, both from a private standpoint, from the various organizations and booster clubs that are within the schools to those beyond our borders. We're excited about the partnership we have with the 21st Century Consortium, school districts that profile very closely to Edina throughout the United States. We're excited about growing an international partnership to say, how do we connect at an international level to make sure we're growing and making sure that our kids will be world ready. And so we continue to look at things of that sort. But when it gets down to it, it's still a partnership between the home and the school, between the community and the school district. And we truly value that, and we're excited about what that's going to bring, because our next generation of Edina Public Schools is going to be much more than a degree. It's going to be about competencies. It's about mastery. It's about students walking out with skills and talents that are post-secondary ready, that are career ready, that are life ready. So this is much more than just about the academics. This is about communication. This is about critical thinking. This is about having world language competencies. This is about having those ethical values that form this school district. This is about kids that are ready and understand the role of being a citizen, the call to serve. And so we'll continue to have that strong base, and we're going to continue to advance our excellence. And we know in working in partnership, great things are going to happen. And with that partnership, I'd like to introduce Scott Neal, City Manager of the City of Edina. Again, a great colleague, friend of mine, and a great person who's an advocate for all learners and living in Edina. Scott?
Thank you, sir. You can tell that our theme for our State of the City address this year has been Next Gen. What's happening as we prepare the community to move into the future? When you think about next generation, it's easy to think about things like technology and learning and other kinds of activities that go on in town. One that may not come to mind is how we play. What's the next generation of parks and recreation? And one of those that we're looking at right now is the Yorktown Community Garden. There is a very strong presence of interest in gardening and other kind of adult recreation as the community continues to age. And gardening is one of those adult recreation activities. So we were able to take this past year a part of a park that wasn't getting a lot of use and transform it into a community garden, our first community garden. And within a week, our 55 plots were taken up almost immediately, and most of those were released to the same folks this past year. When we think of other parks, though, Countryside Park comes to mind. How we build parks is much different today than it was even just a generation ago. When you think of the park that you're looking at now, you're looking at something that we used to call a warming house, and really it's quite much more elaborate than the old warming house used to be. In fact, it's really designed to be more of an informal community center where people can come together and use this space for family gatherings, for community gatherings, and neighborhood gatherings. In addition, when you look at this park, instead of just one hockey rink that is designed for hockey, we have a pleasure ice rink and we have a hockey rink. We have new baseball fields, and those fields aren't just diamonds with the grass scratched off. The soils are new, the irrigation is new, the lighting is new, the fencing is new. It's how we build parks today that's different than how we used to do it. In this particular case, this park is across the street from the new Waters senior development, and about half the cost of this park, we've spent about $1.2 million on this park so far. About half of that amount is coming directly from the park fee that the Waters paid when it came into the city. Garden Park is another park that the city undertook a really strong renovation project this past year. And again, like I was describing with Countryside Park, this is a park where not just scratching out a baseball field into the grass is good enough. We replaced the soil, we replaced the warning tracks, we're building new dugouts this year, new lighting, new fencing, new warning tracks. And what's interesting about this project was the financial partnership that came together to build it. The Twins Community Fund put in $25,000, the city put in $98,000, and the Edina Baseball Association put in $113,000. And that partnership is where the money came from to build this park. One of the things that the council has asked staff to work hard on these past few years has been to look at our parks and recreation facilities, in particular our facilities that were operating costs were exceeding operating revenues. And Edinburgh Park was an example of that. 2 years ago, the council approved a proposal that staff worked with and brought through our park board and eventually to our council, where we had a facility that was losing about $300,000 a year 3 years ago to one that in 2013 really came very close to breaking even. It had about a $5,000 to $7,000 operating deficit. So we made enormous progress during that time in a way that we were able to reduce our energy costs and improve the facility to enter into a long-term lease agreement with the swim club for the swimming pool. And in other ways, we were able to drive down operating costs but keep that pool and keep that entire park a very desirable place. We've been working quite a bit on golf operations this particular year, and the Braemar Golf Dome is a good example of that. We had the fortunate misfortune, I'll say, about 2 years ago in February of 2012, that our golf dome, the former Braemar Golf Dome, burned to the ground, and no one was hurt. But one of the things that we were able to work with our insurance company is to get a pretty sizable settlement that we were able to invest back into building really a state-of-the-art golf dome. And it's quite different from what we used to have, and it's warm, it's bright, it's tall, it's wide. It has a deck that meets all current building standards. It's really quite something. The best restrooms in maybe all of our park facilities we hear. But we're very proud of it. And we'd like to try to do a similar transformation of our golf course, of our golf enterprise. When we look at our Fred Richards course and how it functions within the greater enterprise of the Braemar system, it is a system that currently is not very close to meeting its operating costs on an annual basis. And we're studying different ways to try to bring those two numbers a little closer together. We're advancing some proposals right now to our city council, and they're going to be considering those starting tomorrow night. Sportsdome is a project that I think the community has been considering for many years, and it's just this past year that the council has given the okay to pursue this project. What you're looking at is the Braemar site, the ice arena site, and the large white structure that you see in this graphic is a domed, air-supported domed soccer field. And right next to that, to the left, or in between the ice arena, in between the dark ice arena structures and that large white structure, is the roof of an outdoor refrigerated sheet of ice. And those two projects together are under the design, or in the design phase right now. And we feel like these are another good example of Parks and Rec for the next generation. This is a facility that really has been strongly demanded by baseball, lacrosse, soccer, football, and frisbee and other kinds of indoor winter activities. And we've had a lot of excitement about it. It's in design. It'll be in construction in the summer, and we hope by the end of the year or sometime in December that it'll be open to the public. You know, even though our sense of our ability to communicate and to connect with people in the online world seems to be better than it ever was, we still receive a lot of feedback about it's hard to meet my neighbors. One of the things that we've tried to do to address that and to facilitate greater neighborhood connections in town is the neighborhood initiative. And during the past year, the city council approved a geographic structure and a nomenclature structure for new neighborhood associations. There are 45 individual defined neighborhoods in the city. 3 of those neighborhoods, Concord, Countryside, and Morningside, have gone through the process to work with the city to become officially recognized. There's probably about 6 or 8 actually that are in discussion with the city right now of doing something very similar. But when we have an official kind of defined relationship with a neighborhood, it opens up some communications channels that we can use with those neighborhoods and they can use with us, and we hope it has better connections, not just for the city government to them, but also among the neighbors themselves. Technology. One of the things that we did this past year was take a bit of a bet. When we look at the Southwest Cable Commission, we're part of a group of cities that includes Minnetonka, Eden Prairie, Richfield, Hopkins, and Edina that have come together to help regulate the cable franchise, and we're called the Southwest Cable Commission. One of the things that happened this past year was that commission needed to establish a single new head end where all the cities and the school districts that serve those cities would be connected in one location, and that location then would be connected to Comcast. That location is just on the other side of that wall, about 30 feet from here. And we serve as the hub for those cities and those school districts. We think that that's going to have some value to us in the future, even if we don't understand what that value might be right now. But all those cities came together and financed the creation of that hub and the creation of all the wiring and fiber optic connections to that hub. And we think that even if we can't articulate the benefit of that, we're going to find out pretty soon that it was a good idea. We're looking at online billing. In fact, we've launched the online billing function of our utility bills, our utility billing system. We're going to do our best to try to bring 20% of our current utility customers into our online billing system this past year. It can make an enormous difference to us when you think of the processing of billing and checks and even just the mailing costs of when we have 14,000 different customers. So that's going to be important to us in the future. And finally, one of the things that we do particularly well in the city world is 911 dispatching. The city has been the 911 dispatching partner for the city of Golden Valley for about 4 years, and over the past year, we just took on the city of Richfield. We see benefits to the city of Richfield and to the city of Edina as we are able to consolidate and even coordinate some of our responses to both police and fire issues that happen kind of on our common border. They're happy with our service, we're happy to have them, and it helps to defray the cost of that service for Edina residents. So now I want to reintroduce Mayor Hovland, and he's going to talk about what it's like to do business in the city, both currently and in the future. Jim.
Thank you. A couple of things before I start the conversation about doing business in Edina. I want to first of all recognize that there are some local elected officials here with us this evening, as well as one of our state elected officials and some folks from our board and commissions that deserve a little bit of recognition, I think. Ann Swenson and Joni Bennett from the council are here with us this evening, and our state senator, Melissa Franzen, was able to attend this evening. She tried to attend last week, but was called away for legislative duties when the president was in town. So I'm sure that was a thrilling afternoon over at the Union Station. And then we've got Arnie Bigby and Barbara Lavalure here. Arnie is the chair of the Human Rights and Relations Commission. Barbara runs our Public Arts Committee and does a terrific job. And Paul Thompson, the communications whiz from the Energy and Environment Commission, is here as well. So thanks, and at least one member of the League of Women Voters I see in the background, and one of our former school board candidates. So thank you. Back for a moment just to the conversation we had early on with living in Edina, thinking about the future. Scott had mentioned something about the Waters project, and I just wanted to point out to folks that as the council worked on the comp plan in 2008, we were wondering about whether we had the right kind of housing to accommodate some of our aging senior population, and we had a lot of people leaving town that were looking for other opportunities for living that allowed them to bank some of their equity in their homes and then find a senior living situation. So the council made a decision to go forward with the approval of the Living Waters project next to Colonial Church. It was a difficult conversation because it's a single-family neighborhood. Churches exist in Edina on a conditional use basis in single-family neighborhoods. But nonetheless, I want to report to folks that after 10 weeks of being open, the Living Waters was 50% full. So it's a pretty remarkable story, and I think it does reflect the council's view that we needed to satisfy some of those senior needs in our community. So to talk about a little bit about where we are in terms of doing business and what we're going to be thinking of as we move forward, the Met Council is projecting that we're going to have 59,000 people working in our community by 2040. Edina has historically been a city where more people work than people live. And that's the situation that we're in right now with a population brushing up against 48,000. We've got over 51,000 people that come to work here every day, but if we get to the 59,000 mark by 2040, that will truly reflect an increase in the number of workers in our community. And I think look favorably on the economic development strategies that this council and other councils that have gone before us put in place to make Edina a good place for doing business. Some of the things that are going on are happening in the France Avenue corridor. We talked about earlier with Byerly's. That's a mixed-use situation. And to some extent, if the Wicks project were proposed, that would be mixed use. That will add not only people living there, but also an economic development component to what we have going on in our community. Also, the Think Bank has been approved. It's Hazelden Road and basically France Avenue, tucked up behind the new Byerly's project where that old Szechuan Star was located. So we're going to get a very nice piece of architecture out of this. One of the challenges the council had, and the developer too, was to recognize that we put together a project out there called the Promenade that stretches a walkway, bikeway from the north end of Centennial Lakes all the way up behind Super Target. And we wanted them to embrace that promenade. We didn't put it in there so that they could turn their back on it. And indeed, as they finished their work on their architecture, for Think Bank. They came to recognize that, I think, with some gentle prodding from the council about, hey, don't forget about the promenade side. You need to be thinking about having multiple front doors, and they were able to respond to that from a design standpoint. So when that gets built, I think folks will be impressed with how they've embraced the promenade. And then back to the promenade itself, we're going to be doing phase 4. You can see right there another water feature on the screen, which will be up behind the new one of the new buildings related to the Byerly's project. That's the first, I think, of 3 apartment buildings that it will be next to. So we continue that theme of having water associated with the promenade and Centennial Lakes as it works its way north in a more finished sort of way, and that work will start fairly soon. And then we've got a lot of work going on over at Fairview Southdale Hospital. I don't know if folks have noticed the construction along the crosstown. It's hard to miss, actually. There's some video of it. 89,000 square foot addition of the emergency room and urgent care facility. Just a tremendous demand over there for ER services. So there'll be, as you can see, they're digging down quite deep. There'll be offices on the basement level. The first floor will be ER, and then the urgent care will be there as well. And then there's a new helipad coming to service the area as well. Beautiful architectural addition to the hospital. And not to forget about 50th and France. It seems like we've had all kinds of activity down in the Southdale district recently, but at 50th and France, there's a concern, ongoing concern by the council about do we have enough parking down there to accommodate all the business that the corner is generating, our downtown. And so the council recently purchased the old Edina Realty building on 49.5 Street. You could see it being raised there. It's now all cleaned up, and it's been planted with hydro seed. Once the winter clears, I think we'll start to see some green grass over there, which is a little unusual around 50th and France. And we are close to working on a parking solution that's, we hope, more long-term than short-term in nature with the merchants down there, and that'll be back on the agenda tomorrow evening for discussion and potential approval. And I think we've got a good plan in place that the council embraces. So it'll include some wayfinding equipment, so people won't have to go all the way to the top of some of the ramps to figure out if there's a parking spot, and then have to turn around and come back down because there wasn't. I think that's been a particular problem in the south ramp, and we hope to alleviate that. The south ramp will be ADA compliant by the time we're finished with it, with an elevator. And then they'll all be renovated to modern standards, all 3 ramps. So it'll be a tremendous addition to the 50th and France area. I wish we could get Minneapolis to cooperate with us on a special services district. I think the rest of the council does as well. Their merchants are going to be able to take advantage of this without bearing some of the responsibility that our merchants are undertaking or our city is undertaking, frankly. But it's going to be helpful in terms of making 50th and France an even more viable place to do business. So also the Grandview District. I think most folks in town have inquired of members of the council what's happening over there at that old public works site where we used to have the public works garage before we moved it down into the commercial industrial district in the southwest corner of the city. So we had a group of 52 folks. If you could go back a moment, we can look at that rendering. It's a vision of the group of 52 folks that worked on that, part we called the Grandview Framework. Looks at visioning the entire area, and then if you go to the deconstruction, I guess, the destruction of the old public works site, that's a 3.3 acre site, and we're trying to keep that process moving along. I think one of the visions of the large citizen advisory team of 52 was that this could potentially have a public-private use in that area. And that's what we're going to look at next. We're going to have a request for information released to the private development community and see what we can come up with in terms of ideas on a public-private partnership basis. So we look forward to finishing that work. We should have that RFI from the small citizen advisory team by our second meeting in March, which is the 18th, I think, of March. And then we'll go forward from there. And the council is going to have a discussion on who leads that effort. So this whole area is an area that includes, as everybody knows, the school bus garage as well. Another great example of the ongoing partnership that we have with the school district as we work on how to create the highest and best use for that entire parcel down there, that entire area. And we'll come up with some great ideas, I think, that will be acceptable to the school district. We'll work with them as partners. We want to make sure that we don't remove money from the classroom. We don't want this to be something that costs the district money. And so we'll figure this out together as a community and make sure that it works. So that's what's happening over in the Grandview area. And then back down into the south part of town, folks probably remember the Pentagon Park was all the rage back in the 60s when it was built. An office park stretches out over about 42 or 43 acres of property, both on the north side and the south side of 77th. You can see that beautiful single-family neighborhood that rolls to the Fred Richards Golf Course, and then all of a sudden it goes from green to all gray, which is all concrete. And so we're going to try to work with the developer that purchased that property to create more green space in there. The council has approved what's called a TIF district, a tax increment financing district for that entire area down there, because this has the potential over time to create $500 million worth of property value for the city and for the developer. And there are going to be infrastructure improvements that need to be done along the way, whether it's soil condition improvements, stormwater management, street infrastructure that needs to be worked on. Having that TIF district there will allow us to work with the developer to create the best circumstance we can for the entire community in that area. So this is not something that will happen over a short period of time. It's probably something that will happen over a 10 or 12-year period of time. And we'll see offices, retail, and potentially a hotel south of 77th Street on one of the sites over there that's part of this entire project. So that's what I would refer to, and I think the council would too, as a legacy project. This is going to be something that we want to make sure stands the test of time for all of us that are presently serving our community. We want to make sure that this gets done right and done well, which means done well. And so we're going to be active partners on that. You know, as we think about the future, it caused me to, I carry around quotes in my pocket. And I thought of a couple of that I had in my pocket, and one was from the deceased aphorist, Eric Hoffer, who once said the only way to predict the future is to have the power to shape the future. And Lyndon Johnson, who said at one time, yesterday is not ours to recover, but tomorrow is ours to win or lose. And so I think one of the things that all of us that are on the council have learned over time is that our town has had a history of always looking forward. And this term that the school district has come up with, Next Gen, has nothing to do with our issues with the FAA, but it has everything to do with the advancement of our community into the next generation and beyond. And we're taking this work very, very seriously at the council level and the school board level, because we want those that come behind us to be able to live in the greatest community in the state and maybe one of the greatest communities in our country. So I thank all of you for joining us this evening, and we sure welcome all of your assistance out there that are watching this to help us shape our town, to figure out what it's going to look like, how it will be to live in, what will happen from an educational standpoint as we move towards the year 2040. Thank you for coming this evening.